All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being on the call. This is the Mozilla Science Lab project call for January the 28th of 2016. The Mozilla Science Lab works to make research collaborative, accessible, and usable. And the purpose of this call is to update everyone on all the new and exciting projects that everybody is working on. So first, let's go over the Friends of Mozilla Science. And if you're following along on the Etherpad, you can see that on line 40. Here we have an update from Jan. He's created a new contributor-friendly widget for Paper Badger, including lots of documentation and some new features that they've been looking for, including loading animation and user views. All right, and there's a link there for you guys to check out that work, and that looks really interesting.
Thank you, Jan.
Thanks, Jan. All right, so moving on to the project updates. So this is where we update you on the particular projects, and we have different speakers come on. So let's start here with Paper Badger, and that's with our very own Abby right here.
Oh, yes, I'm in the same room as Max. So I'm lead developer for the Science Lab, and one of our projects is the Paper Badger, Contributorship Badges for Science. So I can't, maybe I should share my screen. Now we'll just share what the notes say, and you guys can click on links as you see fit. But so you know how in academic papers sometimes there's like 50 authors and you don't know who did what? So this way you can see, yeah, we can assign badges to people based on their contribution. So if someone wrote the paper, if someone did the analysis, if someone had the concept of the paper, so they get badges based on that. So it adds a little bit extra value to your authorship there. And if you've got like the analysis badge on 5 different papers, that means something. It means something more than just being the middle author on 5 papers. So we have a roadmap there, and you guys can jump in. We are live on 2 different publishers now, so in GigaScience and in Ubiquity Press. I think, yeah, Brian Hull's on the call, so he might have an update there. And Jan, who we thanked earlier, he made a new widget that has, oh, yeah, if the call is full, then you should just watch on YouTube. I'm really sorry. But, sorry, I'm reading the comments now. I got distracted. Yeah, so we have a new widget, so it has like loading spinners. It's a little easier to contribute to. So if you want to come and help us add some tests, that's a big thing, so that we make sure we have the backwards compatibility for all these, because a lot of the publishers support very old browsers. So we wanted to do that. So that's where we are. And yeah, get in touch. We have a chat room and a mailing list. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to type them in the pad. I know a big thing was, so we still are using in production the old widget that Jan did not make. So we're going to keep, we're keeping development on the new one, and then eventually we'll port over to the old one. So we'll probably have to talk to like you, Brian, and also Amy from GigaScience about porting that over eventually. Cool. So, any questions?
All right, so we've got a little question here. What about using Paper Badger for things other than papers or publications?
Yeah, so right now it's set up to use anything that has a DOI, so Digital Object Identifier. So we could technically assign a badge to like a piece of software if you get a DOI for that, because you can do that now with Zenodo. So we're actually looking into that, so that on your software projects that like you all have, you can give badges to people for like doing certain things. Right now our roles are all very paper focused. So like someone did analysis or someone wrote things. It might not apply very well just yet, but we are thinking about adding a new set of roles for on a software project. So that'll be interesting. And you can show badges like on your README. Oh yeah, that's another place you can jump in and help if you want to. Help us define roles for software projects.
All right, cool. If there's no other questions, I have a quick question. So yeah. Where do you guys see Paper Badger being used in all the badges being displayed? So certainly I could imagine them being displayed on journal sites, etc. But where else do you see these badges being placed?
Yeah, they're for sure. They are displayed directly on papers right now. But yeah, like software, I think that would be a good place. But also like on a user's homepage, like if you're a researcher and you want to say, like these are all my badges I have,
Okay.
like putting it on your personal website. So we're trying to put
like
together
LinkedIn or something.
Yeah. Oh yeah, LinkedIn. You could put it there. It does show up on your ORCID, the unique researcher ID now. Yeah, you have to like click a little bit extra, but it shows up there now.
All right, cool. Thanks a lot, Abby. It was great, being on the call there and giving us that information about Paper Badger. So let's go on to our next speaker. We have Biouno from Biouno. But if I remember correctly, I think Biouno was unable to speak today.
He is in New Zealand, so he's sleeping right now.
Okay, so let me go over what he's written here, and if you guys have any questions, still feel free to leave them, and we can pass on the information to Biouno, and he can take a look at that. So, to start off, sorry,
Nicholas, can you mute? Okay, I muted him.
All right, thanks for bearing with us, guys. Had a bit of a technical glitch there. All right, so with Biouno, it looks like these guys have Jenkins, continuous integration and testing, and other best practices for research and industry integrated, which is great. They've got a bunch of new issues filed by users, which you can click through on their instance of Jenkins. They have released Active Choice plugin 1.3 with 6 issues fixed, and they have a link that you can go to see details about the particular issues that were addressed. They've created a database in Spark as a SparkQL plugin for Jenkins, which will allow Jenkins to expose a SparkQL endpoint to access metadata. And additionally, they have an abstract accepted in eResearch New Zealand 2016 with a link out on the Etherpad on line 82. You can find out more information about Biouno on line 83 by clicking through to biouno.org. So there are a few different ways for users or people interested to help out with Biouno. They can help out with the ontology vocabulary for their SparkQL database plugin. They can look for issues at github.com/Biouno on their GitHub repo. There may be either issues that you could bring to their attention, or maybe you even want to contribute and help to address an existing issue. They also have a mailing list that you can join, and it would be great if you'd be able to tell them more about which best practices that could be applied in testing, SCM, code paper review, continuous delivery and integration, automation, etc., or any questions that you might have. So point those towards their GitHub or their mailing list, and that would be greatly appreciated. Again, if you have any questions or comments, put them in the Etherpad on line 92, and Biouno will be able to take a look at that as soon as he's able.
I know Bruno's really eager to get some new contributors. He's really eager to try to make it friendly for new contributors to come in too. So if you find it's hard to jump in, let him know. Then he'll help you get involved.
All right, great. Thanks for Biouno for featuring his project here. I'm sure we all appreciate that. And now we're moving on to RT Analyzer with Ismail. Are you on the call?
Don't think he is.
All right then. Well, we can go over his entry here. And again, if there's any questions, feel free to leave them on the Etherpad. All right, so RT Analyzer, it's getting ready to launch, which is great. They have a near complete version that can draw graphs, and they're looking for beta testers. And there's a link here for their GitHub pages, and if you click through to that, you can have download links that you can look at and more information about the project. Mm-hmm. So if you guys would like to try it out, give some feedback about their beta, that would be great. And if you have any comments or questions, again, either put them on the Etherpad or feel free to interact with these guys on GitHub. So thanks again to Ismail for posting his project here. And next we have OpenSMP with Sebastian.
Sebastian is trying to get in. Yeah, it would be nice to hear him speak. So do you want to skip over that one, and then maybe we'll see if he can jump in, because Mikey's next, and I think he's actually on this call.
All right.
Yeah. So I can talk and then I'll jump out for Bastion.
Okay, yeah, we can try that. Thank you so much.
All right, great. So let's skip ahead to Collector with Mikey then.
Hi, everybody. I'm getting feedback on myself.
It's coming through clear on our end.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I mean I'm hearing myself on your end as well.
Oh.
Oh, it could be because we've got the mic so close.
Here, I can try to back up for the mic. Is this... Okay, that's better.
Okay.
Okay, so...
Use headphones.
We'll let him speak. I'll try, okay. While we try doing things. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I know. I think I backed up enough that I don't hear myself. So,
okay.
Yeah, so we're still working away on this big 2.0 release we've been working on for a bit, but we're actually getting very close. Essentially, the last thing to do to be in beta is to get one of our big contributors. He's done a lot of work. He's building a little tool to help us pull in all our data, so we can do data collection perfectly fine, and now we're working on bringing it all together and giving it back to our users. But really what we need is just testing a lot right now, because pretty much everyone who's developing is working on Apache servers, so we're all running XAMPP, WAMP, MAMP, or some variant of that. And when we give it to other people and they run it on other servers, we just get strange issues we don't know how to deal with because we've never tested against them. So it's a little bit easier to get involved now in that we have, so you can see it on the Etherpad, there's a link to how to start running, so that like purple link there. We have some people here at UCLA who are writing documentation for us, so they're starting to actually explain the program to people, which is good. And so I think testing's a big thing we're looking for. If anyone knows anything about security and would like to help out, if you just contact us on GitHub or Twitter, email, any of these are all the same, Geiky Marcia. Just tell us and I'll point you at the right places and say, okay, here's what we're doing. Is this a good or a bad idea? And then if anyone's really good at JavaScript, you could be very helpful for us. So we're looking for someone to try to help us build little trial types or a trial type builder. And we, in theory, have an idea how it would be possible. It doesn't seem like it'd be that complicated. We're just kind of strapped for time and don't know JavaScript all that well to tackle it on our own without all the other issues coming up that we're working on. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So we're trying to just get everything polished, make sure everything works reliably across different servers, and yeah, keep coding and eating up all our time.
All right. Well, that's great to hear, and yeah, certainly testing is something that it's an easy thing for people to be able to contribute towards, because there's no specific technical knowledge needed. We do have a couple of questions and comments here on the Etherpad, so starting with the first one on line 130. How do you handle collecting analytics from users, balancing transparency, privacy concerns, and good data collection?
Oh, okay, so I misunderstood how to use this, and that was actually my question to the group.
Oh.
I've been having some talks with my contributors, so we're thinking about, in the kind of near to short term, applying for a grant to support continued development. And one of the things I mentioned was, so what we're basically doing is just helping people run their experiments online for people who don't know how to program. And one of the nice things I thought of, or at least in my head it was nice, was to, when people finish, to ping our own servers with just like, here's an IP, maybe even the last digits taken out, just to say, hey, someone's completed it. So when we go to write a grant, we can say, hey, look at all these users we have. And I have some contributors who are like, no, that's a very bad idea. Don't send privacy things to other people. So I'm trying to find, like, how does Mozilla do that? Like, I know there's some, like, send anonymous usage data type stuff. So how do you handle the language, and to what degree do you go into the details of what it is you're sending when it is something as basically innocuous as here's the leading digits of an IP address and that's it. Like we just want to know someone's using it somewhere in, the northeast of the US or something like that.
I might be able to answer that actually.
Okay, cool.
Hi, I'm Mike Conley. I work for Mozilla, the
Hi, Mike.
Firefox desktop browser. Hello. I do know that for telemetry, which is something that we have on by default in nightly Aurora and beta channels, and possibly like the Firefox Health Report data collection system that is used in Firefox release, privacy is like a very, very important thing to us, and so we definitely do not like strap something like an IP address into the packets that go. Like we don't. Certainly, whenever a data packet is sent to us, we see the connection come in and we see, okay, it was sent from this IP address, but we do not store it. We like throw it away, and the packet, if we want something like GeoIP, will be as coarse as we can get. So if we care about what country it is, we'll see if we can have the client tell us they are in, Germany or they are in Australia or something. Okay. But we won't try and determine that ourselves based on their IP address. We'll have the client determine that and then tell us, and then we'll trust them. We'll trust the client have done their job right. But okay, as coarse as possible to avoid collecting like sensitive things that we should not have our hands on.
Okay, so that's good to know. So try to do like the country, like United States is sufficient.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good advice.
You might also be able to do it based on language as well, although that's imperfect. I mean, your data collection is going to be imperfect. It's a trade-off between like privacy and accuracy and precision.
Yeah, because I guess we're not all really that interested in like doing anything with these analytics and saying, oh, we have users in this country and that. We just want to know like a count, sort of. Because we've just made it available and we actually don't know when it's being used or how often it's being used. That'll give us a lot to think about. Thanks.
That was super lucky that Mike is on the call.
Yeah, it's good to ask into the heart of Mozilla and get an answer.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
All right.
I would not have been able to answer that.
Yeah, it's
okay,
always
jump off then, right before Sebastian.
Those things. No. All right, so we also have a comment here about using Nginx server as opposed to Apache. The commenter here says it's much easier to use than Apache and much lighter resource-wise. I certainly agree, and that's been the case in my use with it. So you may want to give that a try for your project.
Cool, thanks.
All right, guys. We had Bastian, and we skipped over him previously.
I don't think he's here.
He's not able to connect yet?
Nginx. I say Nginx.
Yeah, I never know how to pronounce these things. All these, yeah, either that or I spell it out letter by letter, right? All right, so, all right, then let's go on to Synapse then with Kenneth. And we'll be able to go back to Bastian later. Hey, hey, Kenneth, how's it going? Thanks for being on the call.
This is my first time on the call. I'm actually taking over for somebody else at our company, Brian Bott, who was on these calls a while back. So just a quick update of what Synapse is. So we have a framework for storing, annotating, sharing code and data, including provenance, so tracking how data objects were created back through a history. Everything is versioned. We provide wikis for annotations, or for annotating things, and a key value pair annotation system. There's a full website for this, but also we offer analytical clients, REST API, and then R, Python, and Java wrappers. We use this a lot in a lot of large consortiums, mostly in the life sciences, and then as well in the DREAM challenges, which are crowdsourced life sciences challenges to improve prediction or disease modeling, things like that. So I gave links to places where you can go and see more about this. I'm not sure what the status was the last time we were on a call of this, since I'm kind of just taking over now. But we have lots of need for people to offer improvements, and we have Jira trackers and GitHub issue trackers with dozens, if not hundreds, of feature requests and issues that we just can't all get to with our team of a few engineers. We also are looking for power users, so people who learn the system and already sort of understand data management best practices, ways of doing collaborative research, and then suggesting us ways that we can improve the way that our clients work, the way that our website works, things like that. And we're still trying to come up internally with some other things that might be of interest in a larger context of just best practices of data management, things like that. So all those things are of interest to us.
Okay, great. So hopefully some people on the call here will be able to either directly give you some of that feedback that you're looking for, or be able to get in touch with other people who might be able to provide you a bit of feedback. Yep. We have a question coming in here on the Etherpad on line 150. What are the upper limits on data size?
Data size in total, or per unit, or per data object?
Do we have the commenter clarify on the same line?
Let's do both.
Oh, well, yeah. None. There are no limits.
All right. Well, that's great.
Yes, we have whole genome data size data sets on already. I mean, we mirror TCGA data, so Cancer Genome Atlas. Mm-hmm. All of that data, almost all of the data there, level 4, I believe, if you're familiar with their data management system. We actually just implemented in Python, at least, a new data upload, which is parallelized and will restart even if you kill it and start again.
Oh, that's really cool.
Nice. So yeah, so we're trying to build in, because we've had some issues with data uploads of huge files, like in the gigabyte or multi-gigabyte sizes, and they would get to a gigabyte, and then we push these to Amazon. Amazon goes to reassemble them, and then something would be missing, and then you'd have to start the entire thing over.
Yeah.
But our smart engineers came up with a way to make this work much better, and that's just coming out in this week's Python client release. So if you're interested in checking that out for uploading large amounts of data, then yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool. I know that that's something that I would definitely use. It's really convenient.
Yeah. Yep. So are your users mostly like biomedical researchers?
Yeah, I would say 99% of our users. Yeah. Most of our user base comes from people who our company is working basically as a data coordinating center or as analysts on projects. So we're on a number of large NIH, NHGRI, NHLBI level projects. And then all of the data goes into Synapse, and then their analysts and our analysts work to annotate it, make it available. Yeah. And then we try to incentivize people to make it publicly available as soon as possible. And we try to make that as easy as possible, which it's still not as easy as we'd like it to be. It's just getting people to adopt these kinds of strategies is often harder than the technical challenges. So.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's a bunch of security risks too, especially with genomic data.
Genomic, yeah, we're okay. So we don't have, we do have good, strong governance as well. So we have an entire team here dedicated to governance. And anything that's put on our site, anyone else who notices something can flag it that it says it needs to be reviewed. And then our people go in and review to see what's there. So we can't put any PPI data, so personally protected information. Genomic data that's been de-anonymized is generally okay, but there has to be a good consent process, which often happens at the consortium level. So all projects are private by default, so if you upload any data, none of it is made public. So we don't audit anything that's private, but once it's made public, then it's audited, and we have a pretty strong audit system just to check for obvious things.
Cool, that's awesome.
Cool. Actually, I have a quick question for you, if that's okay. So I noticed that you have a bunch of different APIs. You've got REST, R, Python, Java. Yep. That's all great. I'm wondering, in future do you have plans for maybe a JS API, maybe using promises or something? I realize that the REST API, it's fairly convenient to use in JS environments, but having something a bit more native, a bit more fine-grained might be useful as well. Is anything like that on the roadmap?
That's a good question. Probably not, because we just don't have the developer time to do it.
Okay.
We spend enough time managing the website and the clients that we have. I could bring it up with them. So I'm actually on the data science team. So I'm not on the. I occasionally dabble in the software engineering, and that's usually come up with some prototype feature and then hand it off to them to do it the right way. So I can check with them to see if there are any other ideas of some more client implementations, but I'm not aware of any right now.
Okay, cool. All right, so yeah, I'm just writing down my question there. All right, well, thank you very much for being on. It was great talking with you and great hearing about your project.
Yeah. I'd love to talk more about the paper badger too, because that's an idea that we're looking at. I asked the question earlier about usage in non-paper environments, and we're considering we can mint DOIs. So
cool.
We're interested in ways of that's one of our the things we struggle with is how do we attribute the work that people do on projects. So sometimes they upload something, but they didn't just upload it. They created it. They did a lot of other things. So we want to find ways to give those kinds of attributions to people. So that's an area maybe we can talk about some other time.
Yeah, for sure. I'll drop my email in the pad.
Yep. Great.
All right. Thanks again, Kenneth.
Thanks.
All right. Next we have Phage Parser with Madeline. Madeline, are you on the call?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're coming in now.
Yes. Okay, great. I don't have much to add in terms of updates, but I'll just quickly say what Phage Parser is. So this is an open source project, and the goal is to use all of the published genomes of bacteria, archaea, and viruses, and kind of extract more data from them than maybe has been, and do this in such a way that you can use the power of the fact that there are hundreds or thousands of genomes instead of just looking at particular organisms. We're interested in interactions between bacteria and viruses, and using this data to kind of probe the ecology of bacterial populations. So the idea is that we will end up with curated data sets. That would be the end product of the project, and then other researchers can go in and use these for whatever they want. So there have been contributions. The most recent one I highlighted there in the Etherpad. But right now we're working a lot behind the scenes to kind of revamp the plan for the project, and hopefully we'll have some new issues soon, and also we're going to hopefully improve the onboarding process. So right now the issues are kind of cryptic, and I think they'd be hard for a new person to tackle. So I'm hoping to get some better issues soon.
Okay.
So if people have suggestions for ways that it looks, right off the bat, it's hard to read or it's hard to get into, that's something that we're always looking for.
All right.
The Eric Lander CRISPR controversy. I read an article against Eric Lander, so I only have the one perspective right now.
Okay.
I don't want to comment on the record.
Thanks, Madeline.
Is there an off-the-record button somewhere here?
Very diplomatic.
Yes.
If you whisper off the screen, it doesn't count, right? All right. Well, thank you very much, Madeline, for being on the call. It was great hearing the update about your project, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people looking at your issues, especially once they're a bit more clarified. So again, thanks a lot for coming on. Next, we have ChemOck with Nifras. Are you on the call?
Nifras was on the call, and he dropped off. And then for some reason, Bastian is typing as Nifras now, so I'm very confused.
Yeah, we've definitely had an issue before with Bastian being able to come on the call. So I think that they're having internet trouble. So
they're in different countries. They're not the same person.
No, it doesn't.
It's okay.
Really, I thought they might have been in the same room with one using the other's chat. Oh, okay. Well, I guess that showed me. All right, but if neither of them is able to make it, then we'll go over their stuff here, and again, anybody can leave comments or questions on the pad, and we'll be able to direct it to them. All right, so starting with ChemOcks, we have littles from university students to give small contributions on science tool creations. Now they've got a contributor to work on some simulations on chemical reactions, and it's going to be live in mid-February of this year. So, and they've posted a link here where you can get updates via their GitHub page. They have ways that users and those interested can help and contribute. If you're a developer, especially if you have expertise on visualization, then it would be great if you were able to help contribute ideas or code to their project, and you can get in touch with them on GitHub. We have a question here or a comment on the Etherpad here on line 189. There is a link out to a tutorial and some setup, which I'm assuming would be.
So my PhD work was in a lab that did chemical informatics, and we actually have something similar. I just wanted to make a note for them to check it out, that we have a reaction explorer which lets you draw chemical reactions, as well as things to do machine learning type algorithms to figure out if you put two chemicals together, what are the likely reactions that will occur. So those things might be of interest to what they're working on.
Yeah, and it might give them some inspiration for things that they can do in terms of UI and visualization, etc. So it's great. Thank you for putting that on the Etherpad.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. It looks really cool.
So it was used a lot in teaching. So I know there was a virtual textbook that basically uses this system in undergraduate chemistry classes as the way to learn like the basic chemical reactions that you learn in organic chemistry. So it's gotten a lot of use.
Cool.
All right, cool. I'm sure that they'll find that useful.
Is it open source by any chance?
That's a good question. Knowing my advisor, no. But I think that if you contact them, and I know some of the people there, so if anyone needs help contacting them, I'll put my link or my Twitter or email there. I can get in touch with them to get more information.
Awesome. Yes. So
it would be nice if we could encourage them to open it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, it'd be really great. All right, so let's go back then to Sebastian.
Poor Bastian, I'm sorry you couldn't join.
Yeah, we'll still go over your project though. You're not forgotten, even though we're coming back to you. And
maybe Nifris is Bastian's like alter ego.
It could be. It could be like Batman or Superman in the phone.
That's my theory. Yeah.
All right, so let's start here. So a description of OpenSMP. It's a crowdsourced open data resource for personal genomics data.
Yes, a SNP, as in single nucleotide polymorphism.
Mm-hmm. All right. So they have a few updates here. Firstly, they are still moving the last bits of the whole service to a new architecture made possible with great crowd-funded support. That's great to hear. And their deployment is now completely based on Docker, which completely makes sense. It makes things much easier to deploy and test on different machines. They've added HTML support. Oh, and they said that they finally made it into the 21st century. So welcome, 2016. They're still increasing test coverage, and there's mentioning that this is one of the most important things to them at the moment. So this is something that they're actively working on. And that's probably something that people would be able to help with, testing things out. And in fact, they have links to their issue tracker on GitHub and their mailing list on Google Groups to be able to provide feedback. And they have a list on their GitHub pages where They have different ways that people will be able to contribute. Let's just click through here so that we can read through. They use the issue tracker on GitHub for everything, so make sure to put your feedback on there if you have any, or if they need testing help on maybe a particular issue, maybe you'd be able to help them reproduce it, etc., by going through their GitHub issues. Running rake notes may give you some hints about things that can be improved, so they have a bunch of issues tracked that way as well. And their last point here is that in order to help improve the overall code style, take a look at rubucop-todo.yaml.
Fun naming.
Yeah. In order to learn what it's all about and take a look at the particular tools and read me there. So the main thing is that they've got everything on GitHub, and it would be great if you could help with their testing, or just even try out their tool and see if you have any issues with it, and be great to give them feedback on GitHub. Now again, if there's any questions or comments that you guys have, please list them on line 113 on the Etherpad.
So,
all right, well, somebody thinks it's cool.
Yeah,
which is
I think
great.
it's Madeline, yeah.
Madeline. All right, Madeline thinks it's cool. Thumbs up.
A fun genomics story, open genomics story. So one of our fellows from 23, someone contacted him through 23andMe who was adopted at birth, and he never knew his family.
Oh, really?
So someone contacted him. They're very closely related. So now he's like
No
trying
way.
to figure out what to do. So he's like, now I'm going to put my data in OpenSNP and see what happens. So yeah, feel free to put your data up into OpenSNP or help them build it.
You never know what might happen.
You might find a long-lost relative.
Okay, so somebody's saying that there's a 404 on one of those links. So we'll be in touch with Bastian to be able to update that if it's erroring out.
Oh, I think it's the bracket.
Yeah, actually, you know what? So we can update that here.
There you go.
Great. All right. Well, the timing is working out great. Now we're going to be moving on to the next section, our guest speaker, who will be talking about best practices in open source. Let's all welcome Mike.
Yay!
Hello.
Hi,
Can you hear me?
Mike.
Yeah,
you're
love
coming
the
through great.
stash.
Thank you. I'm getting some echo, and I think it's actually coming from the
It's a
host.
feedback loop from
All right,
from Mike here.
I will mute.
Wonderbar. Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Conley. I work on Firefox Desktop for Mozilla, and something I've been doing recently for the past year, actually slightly a little bit longer than a year, is every week I borrow a bunch of equipment off of Abby's desk, her monitor, like a bunch of stuff, and I find this room here in the Toronto office, and I broadcast myself working on Firefox for about 2 hours. I show people what I'm doing. I've got my screen up, I've got webcam on my face, and I show people what it is that I'm doing. And I call that the joy of coding, and it happens every week. And there's a link there in the Etherpad, so you can watch I think we're up. I just did the 42nd episode yesterday, and I wanted to talk a little bit about my thinking behind doing that and what I've discovered and what and I guess I think I want to talk about what I believe the advantage of doing something like that is. So my talk is it's about letting people watch you bleed. So I know that sounds really dramatic. I haven't really practiced this talk. I've got some notes here, but I'm just gonna give it a shot. This is how I do the joy of coding. I just kind of shoot from the hip. We'll see what happens. Here goes. So let's assume you have a project, and listening to all the great projects that are on this call, I assume a bunch of you have projects. You've got public research out there, and you want to get more people involved in your project. So here's how I like to think about things. I like to think about the universe of projects out there, of open source projects, as being like a giant school cafeteria. And I like to think you can think of your project as a table in this cafeteria. And the people involved with your project currently sit at that table. They sit around your lunch table. Now assume that there are people milling about inside this cafeteria who want to get involved in your project. For them, that makes your table the cool kids table. And I don't know if you remember what it was like being in school or high school, if you were there. I don't know if you've had this experience before where there is a table that the cool kids are at, and you want to sit at the cool kids' table, but you know it's weird. I don't know if they'll like me. I don't know how to approach the table. How do I want to sit at this table. I want to talk to these very interesting people, but how do I do that? I had that experience in high school. I really wanted to sit at the cool kids' table. So I think there are two. I'm not an expert like in sociology or anything like that. I don't have I don't have that degree or anything, but I do have some experience in trying to lower the boundaries of people who want to sit at my table. And I believe there are two things that are very important. One, your table has to be very welcoming, and I'll talk about what that means in a second. And two, your table has to be very human, and I'll talk about what that means second. So I want to talk about welcoming first. And there's probably like some overlap between being welcoming and being human, but I've got some different points under each. This is how I organize my notes. So here we go. So a welcoming table, you've probably already heard about this stuff. Your table needs to have a good README so that people know what it is that you're doing, what it's about. And guides on how to get started contributing and how to do a build, for example, how to create the test environment or create the environment and try something out. A list of work for people to do if they want to get involved. Like here's a list of work. And communications channels, like here's how you can connect to IRC, or we hang out in Google Hangouts every week. Here's the link, or you know we have this video call, or we do this public thing. Maybe we meet physically in some location somewhere. You can join us, like that sort of thing. You make that clear, and then you have mentoring to help grow people. And new people show up, and you help grow people so that they can become contributors who don't need to be walked through, and they can start mentoring new contributors themselves. You kind of grow contributors become mentors, and you get this like nice snowball effect. So that's making your table welcoming, and that's interesting, but not really what I like. That's not the heart of my talk. I want to talk about making your table human. So what do I mean by that? So you are the cool kids table, and people, I believe this, people deep down, for the most part, want to be cool. I think there's this like innate drive, like I want to be cool, I want to be the coolest, I want to be so cool, and it's scary to approach a new table in the cafeteria. It's very scary, and to just like dive in right away and get involved in a community, because like there's so much you're putting at risk out there. You're saying, you're really making yourself vulnerable when you approach a project. You're saying, what are the risks? They might think I'm dumb, or they might think I'm not cool. They might not like me. They might not get my jokes. I might seem strange to them. They might, maybe I won't fit in. Like there's a lot of vulnerability to someone approaching a table in a cafeteria, and I think it's similar to open source projects. So here's how I try to make my table. And like the Mozilla, like the Firefox desktop is like a bunch of tables all sort of strapped together. There are lots of teams and whatnot. And here's how I try and make my table more human. So I like to show people how I make mistakes. Mistakes are great. Mistakes are okay when you catch them and fix them. Mistakes that you like sweep under the rug, you fix quietly and sweep under the rug, in my opinion, are missed opportunities to show people that you're human. And mistakes are actually great stories. People love hearing about mistakes. That's my experience in the matter. Like if I write something on my blog, or I talk about something on my like Joy of Coding screencast, they love hearing about mistakes. They like seeing me get into trouble and then get out of trouble. I think that's a very interesting story. It's less interesting when you, in my opinion, when you watch someone who's just doing the perfect thing every time. Like they're just nailing it every time, and they've got like these predefined steps. They know exactly what they're doing. It's very cookie cutter, almost like you would see. Like I remember in lectures when I was in university, I would watch someone like the instructor go through an exercise where they're like, here's how you would solve this problem, and they've got their notes in front of them, and they're basically just typing out what they've got on their notes, and it worked perfectly every time, and that's not realistic, and that's not very human. watching the struggle is human. So I think it's important to be able to show your mistakes and to show your struggle. So there are a number of ways you can show your mistakes and show your struggle. What I'm doing, I keep seeing like the mute symbol show up. Am I like going in and out? Like,
No, it
You
sounds
used it
perfect
for
to
like
me.
a short second, but then you were fine. So
okay.
yeah.
I wonder if it's because whenever I Alt-Tab away to my notes, I mute. So I'm going to reorganize my windows. Sorry. Hold on one quick second. I will start talking again in a moment. Okay. So there are a number of ways you can make yourself more human. One is you can do what I'm doing and just live hack. You can stumble and fall publicly in front of the internet on camera and then get back up again because that's interesting stuff, or not get up again. Maybe you just hit an impassable barrier, and that's drama. That's interesting, and that's something that I think people can relate to. Of like, look at this person who's putting themselves out there, and making errors, making mistakes, and they're okay, and that makes you approachable because you've made yourself vulnerable. Like there's a kind of transaction that occurs in order to get people to connect to you, and like you kind of have to make yourself vulnerable so that they're willing to make themselves vulnerable, and then you can make a real connection, and they'll approach your table. So live hacking is one way. You can blog about stuff you're doing, and blogging about like your grand successes is great to like show off the cool things that your project is doing, but also consider blogging about things that are going wrong, things that aren't working, pitfalls that you're hitting, mistakes that you made, and like here's a bunch of decisions we made, and here's where they were all wrong, and here's how we corrected that. Publish your notes. That's another thing I've started to do. I've got a link in the Etherpad. So anytime I work on a bug in Firefox, I take notes. I have an Evernote. That's an application I use to take notes. It's basically a stream of consciousness, and it's very useful for, stashing links to various things. Like I've got tests waiting on a machine. While I'm waiting for the test to come back, I'll put the link in the note, and I'll write down my thoughts and the list of things that I've tried that have not been successful, and or where I'm currently investigating. And that's very useful for like doing context switching between bugs, but it's also useful for archaeology. And I'm keeping track of my thinking for particular notes. And I feel like that stuff is very human because you can see these notes if you click on the link. I haven't actually updated my notes since 2015. Like, it's been a couple of months and I need to update them. But there are a bunch of notes in there where you can see me being frustrated. And there are a bunch of notes where I'm wrong, where I go down some garden path and I'm totally wrong about something. And then you'll see just a bunch of characters like me keyboard smashing going, I'm wrong, and probably a lot of swearing. And then I'll write down, okay, here's why I was wrong, and this is I'm going to correct myself, and I get myself back on track, or I try to, and I get help and that sort of thing. And I think that's very human. I think people will recognize that. Another thing, I've never tried this, but I imagine it's somewhat similar to joining and live casting, is podcasting. Talking about what you're doing, talking about the mistakes that you're making, and you. I believe that you can pick up an audience. I've been doing this Joy of Coding thing for about a year now. I don't really know the size of my audience, but I imagine it's somewhere between 0 and 100 people. And that's my estimate, and that's based on very, very little data because I'm not doing too much measurement. But I didn't think at the beginning that anyone would be interested in this. But an audience is growing, and already there have been people, I think it's about half a dozen people have gotten involved in the Mozilla project based on, these screencasts, these streams that I'm doing, because they contact me. They come to me to talk to me about getting involved because they know what I sound like, they know what I'm like, and I appear approachable to them. And I'm human. They think I'm human. And I've made mistakes, so they feel like it's okay for them to put themselves out there to someone who's put themselves out there. I find it helps if people can see you or hear your voice. That's where live hacking or podcasting would help. Maybe that's an advantage over doing something like blogging, but at least give them a sense of your personality and put yourself out there. And I think that's the end of my notes. But I wanted to just say, like, I don't have any proof for any of this. I'm not, like, I know science is all about proof. Bugs are all about proof too. And I don't have any proof, except I have anecdotal and like deep. I have feelings. I have feelings about this, and my feelings say that in order to make a human connection, if you want to get contributors involved, make yourself a little bit vulnerable, and I think that lowers the ramp, and that will make your table seem more approachable, and let people join the cool kids table. And I think that's it. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, unmuted.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mike. It's great hearing you speak about that. It's brought up a lot of rough memories from high school about cafeteria tables, but
Ditto.
It's a little too close for home for a lot of us, I think.
Yeah, man, I hear that.
cuts deep.
So I mean, you can use that.
It definitely home though that you know, we all want to be able to contribute and be able to take part. There's that innate human need and feeling to do that. And yeah, certainly there are a lot of barriers to entry for people, like you know, just simply the fear of rejection, right? Like, you know, will I fit in the group, or will you know, will they just reject even my ideas of what I try to contribute, right? And that can be very frustrating and intimidating. So, you know, thank you very much for speaking on all of that. It was really enlightening to me, and I'm sure to all of the listeners on the call. We have a few questions here.
Sure.
The first one is, what does mentoring look like over the internet?
What does mentoring look like over the internet? Well, I mean, whenever I mentor someone on a bug, that's a very, I mean, that might be very different from what mentoring will look like for you, whoever asked that question, for any of you. Whenever I mentor someone, it's, okay, you're new. I'm going to make sure that you are talking to the right people to fix this bug. I'm also going to make sure I'm your guide. I will, in my head, I will attempt to solve the bug and come up with a path for you, and then I will walk you through that path. I will happily hold your hand and guide you through the entire process, and we'll go right to the end together, and then we'll do it again on a next bug. And this time I won't hold your hand so much. You know, I'll gently release until you feel confident. The one I'm mentoring feels confident, and then, you know, that's them growing. That's, to me, how it works. And I do it mostly using our bug tracking tool. We'll communicate in Bugzilla, although I try and make myself as available as possible. Mentoring and community growth is something we take pretty seriously at Mozilla, which I don't know if we've made that clear, but it is very, very important. And so it's a priority. Whenever an email comes in on a bug I'm mentoring, I have my email client like make it red and flash at me. So it's the first thing I answer. It is my #1 priority in my stack of emails when I get up in the morning of anything I'm mentoring, get to it first. Because answering emails, like, you want to, when you're mentoring someone, fast feedback is very, very important, because the grip on the project, I think, it depends on how reactive you are, and you don't want them to be blocked for too long, or else they'll let go and they'll work on something else that's more inviting and more welcoming. So a fast feedback loop is very important for mentoring on the internet. So it's answering emails, being as available as possible, commenting in the bugs for them, answering their questions, connecting them to the right people, talking to them in IRC, and making sure that their interactions with the community look right. That they don't start talking to somebody in IRC and maybe they don't know how things work and they say something wrong, and you're kind of there to say, like, oh, okay, it's okay, like, you're fine, everything's all right. There's some context that you're missing here. Let me fill you in on what's going on. You're okay. It's being their catch-all, their safety net. That's what mentoring looks like to me. I don't know. That was a long, rambling answer. I don't know if I answered the question.
That was really great, actually. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it was really illuminating to me. We have a couple more questions here.
Sure.
The next one is, what platforms do you suggest for blogging, video logging, podcasts, etc.?
Oh, that's a good question. So for blogging, I host a WordPress blog on my own machine out in Georgia or something. I use a service that hosts a WordPress blog. But you can get a free WordPress blog that's like you don't have to maintain, but you can write posts for at WordPress.com, I believe. And that's worked for me. I've used WordPress, but there are tons of others you can use. And like WordPress is pretty high powered. It does a lot of things. It has like user controls. If you have multiple people working on a blog, you can like build up. It's almost like a magazine where you can have multiple writers, and sometimes that's overpowered. So there are like static blog generators that you may have heard of. There's one called Jekyll that's quite nice, and that's you write your blog post in Markdown. You like run a command and it generates the static site for you, and then you can like send it up to GitHub Pages or something, and GitHub can host it for you, or you can just upload it to your machine somewhere, and you don't have to execute any PHP or Perl or Python or anything. It's just a static site that you generate whenever you're done writing your blog posts, and then you just upload it. So there are a couple of different options there, but I use WordPress simply because at the time Jekyll didn't exist. I use Jekyll for my bug notes, by the way. And if you're interested in looking at like the source code for my bug notes stuff, I can put that in the Etherpad.
Yeah, that would be great. Do you have any comments about video logging or podcasts? I certainly know that you've been putting out videos, so maybe you can speak to that.
So I broadcast on Air Mozilla, and so that's a sort of a content delivery service that the Mozilla project will use for anything that's Mozilla related. And if you're working on something Mozilla related, I'll happily guide you through setting up something on Air Mozilla. But there are some great other ones as well. If you are YouTube Live, YouTube will allow you to stream live as well.
Yeah, this is a Hangout on Air right now.
Yeah, this is a Hangout. I think it will use some of the same mechanisms in the background to like put it up on YouTube at the end, but the YouTube Live will allow you to connect a piece of software. So the piece of software that I use to broadcast is an open source piece of software that I really enjoy called OBS. And I'll put that in the Etherpad as well. So I'm putting all my links. I've got my links on 217, 218, and 219. And OBS is what I use to connect to I connect to Air Mozilla, but you could connect to YouTube Live. And then I believe there's a bunch of documentation on the internet about how to connect to YouTube Live. But you can broadcast through YouTube, and that's very accessible, I believe, to most people. It depends on where you're broadcasting from. I originally started broadcasting through YouTube Live, and I remember someone saying that folks in Germany had difficulty seeing it. So I think there's like regionalized restrictions and stuff. So that might be a barrier, which prompted my move to Air Mozilla. But YouTube Live is one choice. There's another one. Twitch is something that you may have heard of. It's mostly used by video game players. That's like a big thing now, where people will stream themselves playing video games, and they'll do it on Twitch. But I believe there's like a creative part now to Twitch where you can maybe broadcast things that you're building on Twitch. And they've got like a really big audience and people who are always looking for interesting streams. So Twitch might be another thing you could consider. There's something called livecoding.tv if you're just live hacking, but I've heard mixed reports about how good they are. I remember hearing something like controversial about their terms of service, or like the way they will delete accounts, and like I don't think they were very friendly to someone who was being quite reasonable at the time. So maybe don't use them. But I've had reasonably good success with YouTube Live, except for the regionalization, and then I've been using Air Mozilla without problem since then. For podcasting, I have no idea, never done it. But you could look at. I somehow subscribe to, I listen to this podcast called Serial, and I don't know where they host it, but I imagine there's just some way of telling iTunes, here's a URL to an MP3 that I made, I think. I don't know, that's mostly a guess. But I think you upload an MP3 somewhere. I don't know the answer to this question. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, thanks for trying, and your comments on the video were great. A lot of useful suggestions there. Let's see if we're running out of time, but let's see if we can sneak in one last question here or comment.
That wasn't me.
It was Abby. Thanks, Abby, for pushing us for time.
No, I just said you're like very approachable. And it's like, well, less approachable with the stash now, I think.
Yeah, this is not normal. I normally look like this. So this will go away after today. I'm doing a science experiment on my face. Is what's going on. And so far the results are quite negative.
Okay, cool.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Mike. You had some great comments there. Your talk was very illuminating, and I'm sure we all appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today here.
Cool. Anytime.
Thanks.
Thanks. So thanks everybody who was speaking on the call, and thanks to everyone who's listening now and in the future. We really appreciate it. And until next time, guys. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Oh, and you vote for the times in the Etherpad. And there's some questions down there.
Okay, so if you guys could give us feedback on that, that would be great. Just right at the bottom of the Etherpad, starting online 291. Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.